The coastal wind carried the familiar scent of salt and pine as I turned onto the driveway of my Malibu beach house, expecting the quiet sanctuary I had spent years saving for. The sun glinted off the waves beyond the terrace, but what should have been a calm morning was shattered the moment I laid eyes on the scene. Cars I didn't recognize were scattered across the driveway. Music blared from the house, and children ran recklessly through my garden, kicking balls into the flower beds I had tended with such care. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my stomach twisting. My furniture was displaced, wicker chairs draped with towels and clothes, and the vibrant red geraniums I had nurtured for years were trampled beneath small feet. Every corner of this house represented late nights, extra shifts, and months of careful saving. This wasn't just a home. It was the embodiment of my independence, the result of my determination to build something that belonged solely to me. I stepped out of the car, keys in hand, trying to steady my racing heart. That's when I saw her, Lillian, standing on the terrace with an air of ownership that made my chest tighten. Her family surrounded her, grinning with the arrogance of entitlement. A chill ran down my spine as I realized I was no longer entering my sanctuary. I was stepping into a hostile occupation. Memories of signing the mortgage, painting the walls, and planting each flower came flooding back. I had fought for this, scrimped and saved for it, and now it was treated as if it belonged to anyone but me. My throat tightened, but I forced myself to take a deep breath, holding on to the calm I knew I needed. I lifted my keys and walked toward the front door, each step weighted with disbelief and resolve, knowing that what awaited inside would demand every ounce of patience and strength I had. The confrontation began the moment I crossed the threshold. What is this parasite doing here? We have no space for you. Lillian's voice cut through the music and laughter like a knife. My stomach lurched as I froze on the doorstep, the words echoing in my head. I could feel every eye on me, the smirks and whispers of her family slicing into my confidence. Her teenage cousins snickered from the terrace, and her mother leaned against the railing with a look of smug superiority, sizing me up as though I were nothing more than an intruder. One of Lillian's children darted past, almost knocking over the wicker chairs, while another held a ball aloft, challenging me with a playful yet defiant grin. Their presence, so casual and unashamed, made it clear that they had claimed my home as their own. I swallowed hard, my hands tightening around the keys I still held. Shock and humiliation churned inside me, a storm of disbelief and rising anger. How could someone I called my sister treat me like this? How could she parade her family through a house I had earned, with every dollar and every hour of sweat and sacrifice I had poured into it? I wanted to speak, to demand they leave, but the words stuck in my throat. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to leave quietly. And yet another part of me, smaller but fiercer, refused to yield. This house, my sanctuary, could not be surrendered so easily. I took a slow step forward, then another, forcing myself to breathe and focus. The confrontation had begun, and I would not retreat, no matter the faces glaring back at me. I squared my shoulders and met Lillian's gaze, ready to assert what was mine. The battle for my home was about to unfold. I stopped in front of my home office, the room I had always kept locked and organized, my sanctuary of paperwork and important documents. My fingers trembled as I opened a drawer that should have been untouched. Inside, I found a stack of folders I didn't recognize, labeled with my name but filled with papers that weren't mine. At first, I thought it was a mistake, an accidental misplacement, until I saw the legal documents applications attempting to transfer the house into Lillian's name, citing me as incapable of managing valuable property. My stomach dropped. I read through the notes carefully. There were letters, unsigned medical statements, and even emails between Lillian and someone claiming to be a legal advisor. They outlined a plan to present me as incompetent, to make it appear legitimate that the property should be transferred. The timeline had been carefully prepared. This was not a spur-of-the-moment intrusion. Someone had plotted this, and my sister was at the center of it. I sank into the chair, heart pounding, a mix of fear and rage surging through me. This wasn't a misunderstanding or an overreach. It was a calculated betrayal, a deliberate attempt to steal from me. Every late night I had worked, every penny I had saved, every moment I spent building this house was being undermined by someone I trusted. A flood of questions raced through my mind. How could Lillian manipulate the law against her own sister? How could she recruit others to her cause? Fabricating documents, exploiting loopholes, and assuming I wouldn't notice until it was too late. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to yell, to demand justice on the spot, but another part recognized the danger of acting impulsively. I forced myself to take a deep breath and think clearly. I couldn't let anger blind me. I needed a plan, evidence, and legal counsel. I had to protect not just the house, but the integrity of everything I had built with my own hands. As I gathered the folders and placed them into my bag, I felt a sense of resolve hardening inside me. This betrayal would not go unanswered. The next step had to be precise, calculated, and decisive. I locked the office door behind me and moved toward the phone to make the call that would begin my counterattack. I sat at the kitchen table, the folders spread around me, and took a deep breath. My first priority was securing my finances. I called the bank, verified account balances, and requested immediate freezes on any access by third parties. Every penny I had saved over the years needed to be untouchable. The thought that Lillian or anyone else could manipulate my resources sent a shiver down my spine. But I forced myself to stay calm and focused. Once my accounts were secured, I made the call I had been dreading but knew was necessary. Thomas Grant, a family law attorney with a reputation for handling property disputes, answered professionally and listened without interruption as I explained the situation. I could feel my voice tighten at times, but I forced it steady. He assured me he could take action, but emphasized the importance of clear, organized evidence. I spent the next hours meticulously cataloging everything: property deeds, receipts, photos of damaged furniture, and lists of missing personal items. I included screenshots of emails and text messages, anything that demonstrated premeditation. Every piece of evidence added weight to my case, transforming my frustration into a structured plan. As I worked, my thoughts drifted to Lillian. She was my sister, the person I had once trusted above all others, and now she had betrayed me with deliberate intent. Part of me wanted to scream, to confront her immediately, to let her see the full measure of my anger and disappointment, but I knew that acting impulsively could jeopardize everything. Justice requires strategy, patience, and control. By the time I leaned back in my chair, the sun had begun its descent over the ocean, painting the room with long shadows. I felt a mix of determination and lingering sorrow, knowing that the road ahead would test every ounce of my resolve. I gathered the evidence, packed the folders, and prepared to meet Thomas Grant in his office the following afternoon. Tomorrow, the counterattack will begin. The morning air was crisp as I stepped out of the taxi, the folders of evidence clutched firmly in my hands. Thomas Grant arrived moments later, his expression calm but resolute, accompanied by a uniformed police officer and a notary. I followed him toward the house, each step steady, every muscle alert. Today was the day the invasion would end. From the terrace, I saw Lillian and her family laughing, unaware that the law was about to intervene. Their faces froze as they spotted the official plates on the police cruiser, the sharp click of the notary's briefcase, and Thomas walking with the confidence of someone who knew exactly how to dismantle their plan. The shock on Lillian's face was instantaneous. her triumphant expression faltering as reality struck. Thomas handed her the eviction papers, and the officer began to read them aloud, detailing the violations: illegal occupation, property damage, theft of personal items, and falsification of documents. Lillian's hands trembled, and she stumbled over her words. Her earlier arrogance replaced with panic. The children clung to her, confused, as the seriousness of the situation settled over the group. I watched silently, my heartbeat steady, my mind clear. Every move, every detail had been anticipated. Their smug confidence, the casual way they had treated my home as theirs, had blinded them to the consequences of their actions. Each page of the documents I had prepared, each photograph of the damage, each receipt proving ownership and care, reinforced the strength of my position. Veronica tried to argue, her voice high and sharp, insisting the house belonged to the family. But Thomas countered calmly, citing the evidence, the law, and the notarized documents. Lillian's mother looked helpless, and the children's confusion mirrored the collapse of the illusion that they had been entitled to my property. I stepped onto the terrace as the family scrambled, collecting their belongings under supervision, and felt a strange sense of quiet satisfaction. The house, my home, was finally being returned to me. Lillian's expressions of shock and fear confirmed what I already knew: they had underestimated me at every turn. As the last of the boxes were loaded into the cars, I took a deep breath and prepared to survey the aftermath, knowing the next step would be restoring the home I had built. The house was finally empty, the echoes of chaos fading into silence. I walked through each room, taking in the damage with a critical eye. The cushions were stained, the rugs needed deep cleaning, and some furniture had been scratched or displaced beyond repair. I began organizing a professional cleaning service, scheduling them to scrub every surface, wash the fabrics, and restore the house as close as possible to its original condition. As they worked, I moved methodically through the rooms, cataloging missing or damaged items. Some belongings were irretrievable, like the fragile porcelain plates I had collected over years, but photographs, documents, and small mementos had been recovered. The process was tedious and exhausting, yet I felt a growing sense of control. Each item restored, each corner cleaned, was a tangible reclaiming of my space and my life. The emotional scars, however, were harder to erase. I remembered Lillian's words, the smirks of her family, and the way I had felt small and powerless. Anger and hurt still simmered beneath the surface, but I could feel a shift, an emerging sense of empowerment. This house had been violated, but it had not defeated me. I had survived the humiliation, and now I had the tools to assert myself and protect what was mine. I paused in the living room, looking at the sunlight filtering through the windows, imagining the house as it once had been: orderly, peaceful, and entirely my own. This restoration was not only physical but symbolic, a reclaiming of dignity and agency. With the cleaning underway and repairs scheduled, I turned my thoughts toward the next steps. There was more to be done, not just to recover the home, but to ensure that I would never face such betrayal unprepared again. The next phase required careful planning and vigilance as I set about securing the house for the future. With the house returning to order, I turned my attention to the younger members of the family, the nieces and nephews who had been caught in the middle of Lillian's scheme. They were innocent, unaware of the deeper motives behind the chaos that had unfolded in my home. I invited them over individually, spending time teaching them about boundaries, respect, and the importance of valuing other people's property. At first, they were hesitant, their eyes wide with confusion, unsure of how to navigate the tension between their mother and me. I approached them gently, sharing stories of my own mistakes and lessons learned, encouraging them to ask questions and express their feelings. Slowly, walls came down, replaced by small moments of trust and understanding. Even as I nurtured these connections, I maintained a cautious distance from those who had caused harm. Lillian and her older children were off limits, at least for now. I could not allow their previous actions to undermine the lessons I wanted to instill or the safety of my home. My focus was on the young ones, helping them recognize right from wrong without letting the betrayal of adults define their perception of family. We spent afternoons in the garden, planting flowers and tending vegetables together. Each activity a quiet reminder of the care and effort that make a space and relationships flourish. The house began to feel alive again, not just as a structure, but as a place where guidance and connection could grow. Watching the children laugh, asking questions, and genuinely listening, I felt a cautious optimism. Bonds could be rebuilt, slowly, carefully, without erasing the lessons of the past. I knew that some wounds from the family betrayal would never fully heal, but moments like this offered proof that trust and understanding could grow anew in the spaces where respect and accountability were nurtured. As the sun dipped low over the terrace, I realized the work of protecting both my home and these fragile connections was far from over, and the next steps would require planning and vigilance. With the house restored and the younger family members slowly reconnecting, I took a step back to reflect on the past weeks. The legal battle, the confrontation, and the painstaking process of reclaiming my home had left their marks, but they had also revealed a strength I hadn't fully recognized in myself. I had fought for my autonomy, defended my property, and emerged with both justice and dignity intact. The lessons were clear vigilance, preparation, and knowing your own worth are crucial when others attempt to overstep boundaries. I realized that empowerment isn't just about asserting authority in the moment. It's about creating systems that protect you and those who rely on you. I began implementing measures to ensure my home could never be so easily violated again, updating locks, installing security cameras, and formalizing legal protections to prevent any future disputes. Each step reinforced a sense of control and stability that had been absent during the invasion. Beyond my personal space, I felt a responsibility to share what I had learned. I started speaking with young adults and peers, offering guidance on protecting their assets and recognizing early signs of exploitation. Sharing my story became a way to transform my anger and pain into purpose. Conversations about boundaries, respect, and legal preparedness helped others navigate situations I had only just endured, and in doing so, I discovered a renewed sense of meaning and connection, even as I reinforced my independence and advocated for others. I knew that life would continue to test me in subtle ways, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a quiet confidence that I could meet those challenges on my terms. I moved through the house, checking that every room, every lock, and every security system was in place, aware that the next chapter of my life would be defined not by betrayal, but by the careful, deliberate choices I made to protect my future. The house had regained its quiet rhythm, each room restored to the order I had worked so hard to maintain. I moved through the spaces slowly, touching the polished surfaces, checking that every lock was secure, and noting the presence of the new security cameras. This home was more than walls and furniture. It was a testament to my perseverance, my independence, and the years I had devoted to building something that belonged entirely to me. The memories of the intrusion, though still sharp, had begun to fade, replaced by a steady sense of control and accomplishment. I reflected on the journey that had brought me here, the shock of betrayal, the humiliation, and the anger had been overwhelming at first. But each step I had taken documenting damages, securing finances, and taking legal action had strengthened my resolve. I had learned that asserting boundaries is not only necessary but vital, and that standing firm in the face of family betrayal requires both courage and strategy. Even as I claimed victory, I approached the relationships around me with care. I continued mentoring my nieces and nephews, teaching them about respect, responsibility, and the value of integrity. With Lillian and the family members who had caused harm, I maintained a careful distance, protecting both my emotional well-being and the lessons I wanted to impart. Each encounter was deliberate, a balance between openness and caution, ensuring that past mistakes would not repeat themselves. Sitting on the terrace as the sun sank into the Pacific, I felt a quiet pride. The house, the life I had built, and the dignity I had defended were mine to protect and cherish. It stood as a symbol of resilience, a physical reminder of what can be achieved through determination and courage. The experience had changed me, deepening my understanding of strength, autonomy, and the meaning of justice. I knew now that life would continue to bring challenges, but I was ready, confident in my ability to face them with clarity and resolve. As the last light faded over the water, I looked out at the horizon and breathed in the salt-tinged air, feeling at peace in the home that I had fought to preserve and would continue to safeguard for the years to come.